Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We are back. We had to ship Julio to Cuba to do a little bit of soul-searching, investigating, and resting. As you can see, he has rediscovered himself with a very lovely red hat. Julio, good of you to come back. How was Cuba?
It was good, man. It was good. I'll be honest. It was a bit of a cultural shock. I'll tell you about it later outside the podcast. I don't think we want to do this podcast about.
Yeah. This is not a travel blog. This is not a travel blog.
It's not a travel blog. It's not.
All right. Okay, so let's not beat around the bush. We decided to have a very current topic, and that is cold calling dead? And just before we dive into the topic, let me answer for both me and Julio, it's not. And then you can basically stop the episode and leave, or you can stick around and find out how we do cold calling, what are the techniques that work, and how do you actually approach it. So the topic is will be very clickbaity, and that is cold calling dead? Julio, open it up, my man.
Well, look, as you can see, I never believed it was dead, but I had the pleasure to meeting both Benjamin Dennehy as well as Zach Thompson from We Have a Meeting. I was at their office for 1 week cold calling for them, just to get, I literally went from Cuba. I landed in Prague. I unpacked a bag. I packed with more suitable clothes for England, and then I just flew back to London. So literally, I was like, I need to get myself back into gear, and I'm going to go to this place. So I did like 700 cold calls in a week. So it was quite intense.
So what was your conversion rate? How many meetings booked?
It wasn't that good, man. I booked 4 meetings in like 4 days, basically, because then 2.5 days I was doing other things, and those guys there were booking a meeting every 3 hours. And I'm talking about one of the guys sitting next to me is a 20-year-old with 4 months of sales experience, and he was making calls, and I was like,
but he doesn't know how hard cold calling is,
exactly,
man. He has no concept of it. It's easy for him. He doesn't know it's hard.
True. No, I was Zach was coaching me and helping me, and I realized a lot of bad habits that I have from my previous sales jobs, which were completely fine a while ago, but obviously sales keeps evolving, right? And therefore, like, my cold calling was just very much about selling and pitching rather than actually getting the person to kind of like persuade themselves, which is what I started to learn with these guys last week.
Yeah. I had the same issue. I was when I began, I was all about pitching and try to give as much information as possible, and that obviously doesn't work. It didn't work 15 years ago. I don't know why reps use it today.
It's a very good question. I think we just like the sound of our own voice, right? So we think that if we're talking, things are going well, when it couldn't be far away from it couldn't be further away from the truth.
Oh yeah. So I am curious now. You kind of piqued my interest. Did they use any kind of parallel dialer? Or
well, no,
of course. I mean, you can do 700.
Actually, not parallel dialer, just power dialer.
Just a power dialer?
Yeah, no. That's the craziest part. We wasn't even doing predictive or parallel dialer. They were just doing power dialer, and I was like, wow. But I mean, obviously, they have Cogniz plugged in.
Yeah.
So we were getting like generally very good data. I was having with 120 dials a day, almost 200 dials a day. I was having like 30, 35 connects, 40 maybe. So like the connection rate was like 20%. So it's pretty good.
It is pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, the first thing I got to say is, I mean, I already knew before the cold calling wasn't dead, because I still book most of my meetings from calling, but it kind of really rewired the old situation with looking at how they were doing things, because they had such good conversation based around pain, right? Just trying to figure out the problems the prospect is facing. And sometimes I booked meetings from email or LinkedIn, but you haven't had a conversation beforehand, right? So you book in a meeting and you got a vague impression the person is going to have a problem, but you don't know. While if you call them, you do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, of course. I mean, nothing beats in-person conversations. If you can't travel, and most it is rather expensive to go kind of to face-to-face meetings slash conferences, then you have the phone, and I am a huge proponent of it. I have a kind of a love-hate relationship with the new reps, which I call silent sellers. I mean, it's okay because us who are actually living cold calling don't actually have competition in the job market. But then again, if I'm an executive, then I actually want to find people who want to do cold calling. So it's kind of a
No, makes sense. Well, I mean, look, I figured talking to these guys because most of them were really young and just getting on with it. So a lot of it depends of obviously how you've been trained, I think. But I really seen like incredible results. Like some of these guys booked meeting with BBC, eBay, and ThyssenKrupp. So I'm talking about big level enterprise, not just small companies, which obviously it's generally a bit simpler. So really, I've seen quite a lot of good work done there. But what I think we can do is break down, because I know we have different ideas about intros, about how you go with the call. So I think we can give a bit of a breakdown of how is it that what we think works, etc.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm done with that. Okay. So let's break down the call, right? So you have your opener.
Sorry, I would say it starts with the data. First of all,
all right. Let's
like,
go with the data. Alrighty.
Like the first thing I figured out is that look, I actually thought we were gonna do a lot of getting past the gatekeeper, but in the end, they prefer to go directly for mobiles. If you have mobile numbers, there's just like I think the first thing is don't make your reps try to get past receptionists if you can avoid it. Just get the data. It's gonna be a bit more expensive, but you're gonna just get so many more conversations.
I mean that's a given. This is why I actually, and a shout out to Alex from Connect and Sales. They do the I don't quite understand it, but basically verification of phone calls that actually pick up.
Yeah.
Right. So this is me explaining it in the very lamest terms. Sorry, Alex, for butchering it. You're absolutely right. When you have either direct dials or you have mobile phones, that's a completely new ballgame.
Exactly. So I would just start with that. We can talk about dialers, not dialers, but I think the most important thing is data.
Yeah, well, I would say step one is data. I wouldn't maybe not necessarily call it the most important step, right? Although if you don't have anyone to call, then
you can be the best cold caller in the world.
Tell me a little bit about data. Okay, so you mentioned Cognism. I know Cognism is very strong for UK, and ZoomInfo is kind of the gold standard for US.
Yeah.
Yep, I know for the DACH region, it is, I think, EchoBot.
EchoBot is MVP.
But then what about everything else, man? What about the rest of the planet Europe?
Very simply, I think if you're on a budget, you start with Lucia. And instead of trying to, but I think Lucia works well if you don't have such a niche market and you can just kind of like go for blanket ICP. Because I have a very niche market and I find maybe like 15% of the numbers, which is just not good enough to target your market. So I would say Lucia's good if you can just target, let's say, HR directors, and then you just find all HR directors with numbers and you kind of go from there.
Yeah. I mean, they did increase the quality of the data. That's for sure. So in Centric we'll be using both Lucia and Lead IQ, and we are kind of using it like interchangeably. If I find someone on Lucia, cool. We're always looking for mobile phones. If I don't, then I go to Lead IQ. If not, then we are going through hell of the switchboard and front desk and all of that. Yeah, so definitely data number one. Number two, let's talk about tech. The dialing tech. We did mention a little bit about power dialers and parallel assisted dialers. So maybe if some of you guys in the audience don't know what these are, let's break them down. So Julio, if you wanna,
of course,
do the honors.
Look, just put it very simple. I don't want to spend hours
on
the tech, but like the power dialer is the basic, which is basically just means you click one button and it kind of calls. You don't have to worry about clicking every time, copy pasting numbers, etc. So that's that very basic level. Most CRMs that are Dane of this name will have this function included. However, once you start to have a few more reps, you kind of want to go for either parallel or predictive dialer. And basically a parallel dialer is just simply that the tech will do more numbers at the same time. And then the first available call will be assigned to the rep. So obviously this has got some downsides because preparing for calls, you can't do this type of things. It's just kind of based on, you give you 100 numbers, we call them all, and we try to have as many conversations as possible. Or the predictive dialer, I don't know exactly how it works, but it's like predicting voicemails, etc. So just increases the amount of pickups that you get as well.
Yeah, well, the parallel assisted dialer heavily depends on, I would say, the parallel as well, but the parallel dialer heavily depends on your research and your list, right? So how well do you curate your list? I mean, that's kind of and again, we are getting back to the data and quality of the data, right? Seems that is the most important part of call calling. And it's you have to be 100% sure that person who picks up is the ICP.
Of course. This goes back to targeting anyway.
Yeah, of course.
I think you're generally understanding very well their pains, and now you're going to present the very beginning of the call is what makes the most sense.
Yeah. All right. So we have our data. We have our tech. What now?
Well, now we start with someone picks up the phone. What do we do?
What do we do? All right. So
and I know with this we have two very opposite views. So
Julia and I. Julie and I have kind of two different opinions on this, and well, I will let you kind of start with your.
So you're gonna let me dig my own grave, basically.
Yes, I will let you dig your own grave.
Of course. Well, look, it's not something I used to do very much, but I actually started recently, and I like it, which is the permission-based opener. So I actually adopted a slight variation of Benjamin Dennis and Zach's, which is basically I start with, look, I'm going to be completely honest with you. You're probably going to hate me. This is actually a sales call. Do you want to hang up or let me have 30 seconds? And look, I used to be very skeptical before I tried this because I was like, I don't know, like a lot of people use this, etc. But I gotta say, it was working very often. Like with salespeople, with C-levels, I would say probably 3 out of 4 just were like, yeah, go ahead. And with SMEs, it was more like 60%, but still worked quite well.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, the only issue, and you and I talked a little bit about this, the only issue I have with PBOs, the permission-based openers, is it kind of puts you in the lower status when you're asking for permission to pitch. Or to have a call, maybe not necessarily to pitch, but to have the call. However, if done with confidence and if done with charm, it morphs out of the lower status into something that is actually not a lower status. But the problem I have with it is that a lot of new reps are taught this, and a lot of new reps don't have the confidence to pull it off. I can pull it off,
True,
right?
true.
But
That's fair.
but this is me with 25 years of being at the helm, right? A lot of young reps don't
have that. True. That's a very valid point. That's a very valid point. I mean, look, what I'm gonna say, which is what I've kind of read and practice everywhere, is that if you ask 10 top sales reps what the best type of opener is, they're gonna give you 10 different answers.
Yeah.
Everyone has got their own that they like, and it just works better for them. So I think that the crucial thing about it is that you gotta sound like you belong on the call. You gotta sound like the person wants to talk to you. So it's really whatever you feel comfortable. I'm sure there are people that say, hello, Mario, how you doing today? And still do well.
Yeah.
You know? So like, honestly, I think it's really about tonality and what you're comfortable with. And then everything else, it kind of falls in secondary.
I've done a lot of cold calling. I've done PBOs, but the methodology that made most sense is the Justin Michaels route rule multiply. I found most success with it simply because right from the first 10 seconds of the call, so I'm not lowering my status, or I'm not in danger of lowering my status. Let's put it like that. But also I will find out who is the person that I need to talk to.
And can you explain it for the listeners?
Yes, so the opener, and again, credit goes to Justin Michael, and I'm repeating this with permission, but he's very vocal about it anyway. This is not me. I'm not clever enough to invent this. It goes. So first of all, it is always about confirming the name and surname, right? So I would say, "Hey, is this Giulio Segantini?" And then I would say, wait to see yes.
Yep.
And then I would just say, hey, Giulio, can I just quickly ask? And then I will ask it. So I will use the, hey, can I just quickly ask you as a way of asking for permission, but I'm not actually asking for it. I just dive into the, hey, can I just quickly ask you who handles? And then I will ask the hiring for new reps. Right? If I was a recruiter, I would say at your company, who handles the hiring? So I've tested this, and who handles works better than who is in charge in Europe. So for all of you European reps, who handles works better in EU. Who is in charge works for US.
Okay, I like that actually. It's quite smart way to go.
Very direct. And then funny thing is, if you call head of talent acquisition and you ask who's in charge of hiring new developers, or who's in charge of hiring new people at ABC, and they say, well, I am. And then what I would do is the ruin part. The way how I explain it to my reps is, you now go after the process itself, right? So you want to see how they're doing it, and then try to see what their sense is regarding how they're doing things, right? So I don't want to, the question we never ask is, what do you hate about the process? We never asked it. We said, what do you love about it?
Yeah, of course. You're looking for the bias to kick in, basically.
Yes, I'm waiting for the bias to kick in, because given enough time, basically 2 to 4 minutes, people will start bitching, and they will start complaining, and you just have to be super. My call calls tend to be between 10 and 15 minutes when I actually speak with my ICP.
Makes sense. Okay,
yeah.
so
and then you try to basically, I am looking at it as a short discovery.
Okay.
Right. So I'm approaching it always like that.
Okay. So you're looking. So basically, it's more you're trying to find out about the process and whether the process
and problems. So how are you solving this burning issue? And is it even, so is it an issue, and how much it hurts? So that's my philosophy always.
Mm-hmm.
What is the problem? So are you aware that there is a problem, and how much is this affecting you, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't, because one of my favorite sentences that every sales guru says is, you have to create urgency. Bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
You have to uncover urgency.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm trying to.
Okay. Okay, makes sense. Okay, so just to break it down again for the listeners, so you're gonna go for your opener that will qualify whether the person is the right person to talk to. Then you're gonna start really directly discovering how the process goes concerning, obviously, specifically the problem that you go about fixing.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Understood.
That's the second step is called ruin. Simply because my goal is to to try to get you to question it, right? If I question it, that will take us nowhere. I want you to start questioning it. I want you to admit that you do have problems, you do have issues, and that it is a big enough problem for you to consider talking more with me.
Understood.
That is what I want to achieve on the call.
You're basically letting them figure out that they have a problem and you might be able to help them, basically.
I don't even go that far with helping them. I want them. I want to hear the pain coming out of them, right? I want to hear that, and then I will go in case of where I'm currently centric, I can't use, so that the last part is multiply, which is his famous line that says, why not plug us in as a multiplier? Don't change anything. Unfortunately, I can't do that because only one company can do brand protection on a specific marketplace for one specific company.
Okay.
Right. So then
anyway,
I have to question them what they're doing currently, and then get them to stage 2.
Okay. Cool. All right. So the logic again, it's basically, I mean, which is kind of common in sales, is you trying to uncover a pain, an urgency behind the pain, and then at that point it kind of sets you up for the second stage, which is a proper discovery.
Yes. Okay. Yes. And then once I get enough interest, usually after 10, 12, 15 minutes, but and this is what I'm, and we can go into but my attitude over the 2 guys or two people just having a coffee and talking about problems that are plaguing you, issues that you're facing. That's that's how I approach calling, and I've done it for a long. And even when I did PBOs and I did the Chris Voss labeling, this is a call and you probably hate me. And if you're doing the Sandler bit, every time I thought about it, just having a normal conversation.
I think this is generally about sales. The more you approach it like a normal conversation, the more likely it is to be successful.
Yes. What about you? So you do PBO, and then
I'll do the PBO. What I like about it is obviously the honesty behind it, as well as the fact that if you're gaining permission, you tend to have then their undivided attention. Right. So I am basically gambling a lower compliance rate onto the opener to have a higher compliance rate onto later on, basically. Also, it's got a very nice thing about it is that you don't really have to introduce yourself. So if a call goes wrong, you can try it again. You can try via email. You can try via LinkedIn. There's not really been that much happening in that sense, depending whether you decide to introduce yourself or not. But then, yes, so basically the step after that, which again, I've learned from these guys, is I was doing something similar after training with Dennehy, but what is it then? Then I just, look, I'll be honest, we get invited by ICP. So we're getting invited by, let's say, HR directors that are struggling with 3 things. Number 1, Maybe you don't have that, you have number 2. Maybe you don't have that, you're number 3. And this at that point, then you go with negative confirmations. You'll be like, you're probably going to tell me this doesn't apply to you at all and I'm barking up the wrong tree.
Yeah.
And then again, you're basically trying to figure out, does the person have any resonance with the pain that you are fixing? And basically at this point, if they say, actually, none of this applies, you kind of know that either they're lying, which is a possibility, obviously, or they just don't have the problem. And
or they are not aware of it.
Or they're not aware of it. It's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And at which point you would have, but again, if you don't have the permission, if they're not even aware of it, are you going to be able to teach them there and then? Or
well, I would, again, I would attack the process itself, right? So what I mean by that is, how are you solving the problem? I'm assuming you, so my assumption is you do have an issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I want to investigate and see how are you currently solving it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's my assumption. And if I come to a brick wall and you have no idea what I'm talking about,
Mm-hmm.
then I want to get to the point where I need to uncover urgency. Because if you know you have a problem, we do have urgency. But if you are not aware of the problem, I need to uncover it. So the way that I'm asking questions is kind of goes into that direction as well.
Okay, so you're basically trying to challenge them. Essentially, you're applying a bit of challenger into the
little bit of, yeah. I love challenger. Yeah. I use that in cold calling. Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, look, there's so many ways to skin the cat, right?
Of course.
And generally, I mean, I guess your approach will be even more top of the funnel, because you're gonna be potentially influencing them on understanding that they have a problem they haven't even realized. And obviously, the approach that I implement is more about, is the problem really something that you understand yet? And if you don't even understand it, should I be spending the time trying to figure this out? Which again, I think a lot of it depends whether you have a very complex solution or a simpler solution, or whether you're looking at a very niche market or not. If you're targeting 100,000 people, you don't care about trying to teach them that they have a problem, right? Because you can just find someone that does. Well, obviously, if you have a 10 people market, then you really want to take probably a much more in detail approach, I would say.
Of course. But for me, it is always about just having normal conversations, right? That's my only goal. Yeah. All right. So what would you say? So how would you, if you would to train a new rep? Let's go a little bit there, because I do know that we do have either founders or CEOs or even maybe VP sales listening to us. If you were to train a new rep, so how would you go? How would you go about it? But we're just talking cold calling.
Of course. Well, look, I have a very simple approach, which is the herd therapy. So like, I mean, I'll be honest, if you're training people on cold calling and you don't get them on the phone within the first 48 hours, I think you're just developing angst. The more it waits, the more fearful they're going to become, the more it's going to become this crazy thing to do, etc. So I think that ideally, the way I would start, obviously you need a training and a coaching program, etc. But I would look at, your D-level accounts. So the one that's really, you don't care too much about, and you just get them to start calling these guys, basically, just to get accustomed to being on the phone, facing rejection, etc. As much practice as early as possible, basically.
I would do the same thing, but in the onboarding process, I would write them the model.
Of course.
So this is how we are using the model. Learn it and start. But my teaching of the rep actually begins in my job interview.
Yes. I think you need to manage expectations immediately.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would ask them to role play calling a little bit with me, and then I will give them feedback, and I will tell them, okay, so this is a technique that we are using And this is, if you get the job, this is what you will use as well. So
Yes.
kind of get yourself very familiar.
I completely
Get yourself familiar with it.
I've actually seen a lot of processes go wrong because the reps aren't told how much cold calling or how much prospecting they gotta do, and they kind of walk in expecting I'm gonna have clients call me and I just need to close the deals, right? And then everything goes to shit, quite frankly. So I think, yeah, absolutely start with the recruitment process, and then the onboarding process needs to be very clear.
Do you know that I even in my job description, I've put in what cold calling technique we are using.
Oh, nice, nice.
I always do that. I don't. So whenever I write job ads, I always, so what is the task at hand? So what do you need to do instead of the usual corporate mumbo jumbo crap?
Makes sense. So I agree. It starts from recruitment. I agree. And then
for sure.
and look, you mentioned role plays. I think a good combination is you run them quickly through the theory. You give them I'm not the biggest fan of scripts, but let's be honest.
Yeah, me too.
But at the beginning, you want something, right? Remember, in my first day, I wanted to at least understand what questions should I ask, what should I say. They're very basic. You role play it a few times. You give them the basic script, and then like ideally they get
unleash the hounds.
Exactly, like Mr. Burns style, exactly.
Oh, I mean, for sure. And especially for the SDRs, if maybe not the junior ones, but someone with a little bit more experience, like you should be ramped up after 2 weeks. Like you should be fully up and running, man.
I mean, 2 weeks, like you mean to be able to hold the conversation or to be able
to... for sure.
To be able to hold the conversation, I would say, yeah, 3 weeks, which means what, like 9 days on the phone. Let's say in the first day is full of HR compliance crap.
Yes.
But let's
say... I love it that you come from HR industry and you're saying HR compliance crap.
Yeah, look, I remember our first day, these poor bastards would spend the whole day in the boardroom just signing documents, right? For health and safety and this and that. Like it just the way that it is, you know. But I would say 9 days on the phone, I think they should be somewhat able to have a conversation. I do think that actually you can tell in the first 2 weeks if someone is going to make it, or at least you can have some inkling. Well, actually, no, that's wrong. You can tell in 2 weeks if someone is not going to make it. You can just look at them and be like, man, you're not going to be able to make this, are you? And then they're just like, yeah, I don't think so. They know themselves, right?
Yeah.
And then you save yourself a lot of drama.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right. So let's wrap it up. So let's end. We usually kind of have the kind of end words, but instead of that, let's do like a 2-sentence or 1-sentence advice to younglings just getting into sales in the SDR role, specifically cold calling. So what would you give, like a one piece of advice?
Just get on the phone. just pick it up. It's your best friend in the day.
For all of you born after 2010, phones didn't used to look like this. You have to actually pick it up to talk. So when Julia says pick up the phone, this is what he means.
Yes.
Good. Just Google it. Old phones. Google old phones. You'll be fine. Yeah.
Love that. What's yours?
I would say the test and learn. So you do a cold call, however it goes. Try to learn something from it. What did you do good? What did you do badly? Repeat. Apply.
Makes sense.
If you give yourself 3 months on a phone, if you have an excellent, as we discussed, excellent tech stack, so data plus either a power dialer or parallel assisted dialer, like Connect and Sell, you'll be phenomenal after 6 months of doing cold calling, like for sure, maybe even sooner.
Agreed.
Yeah. Cool.
Perfect.
Well,
Awesome.
this is a nice way to kick off after the break. So
Let's
thanks.
let's catch up soon, mate. And
Yeah.
well, next week, really.
Well, we are again back next week. Thanks everyone for joining. Julia, good to have you back within the land of the Europeans, since you were at the
And the Brits now.
and the Brits. Oh yeah, but that's not two things. They are no longer Europeans.
True. Yeah, forget about that. True. All right. See you later, Mario. Ciao, ciao. Enjoy.
See you later.
Bye bye.